Hello, hello. We are live. Welcome everyone to another live stream Monday. Today it is Monday, September 12th, 2022, and it is officially the beginning of my favorite season of the year. It's NFL season, it's football season. There is college football. There was NFL weekend. So I got to watch UNC, my school, play against Georgia State and they won. Then yesterday I got to see the Dolphins play against the Patriots and they won. And tonight there's Monday Night Football and it is absolutely my favorite time of the year. And I am excited also to be here with you all today. We're going to have, like every week, another live stream presentation full of very useful information. In a little bit, I'm going to talk more about what the next hour is going to look like, so that you have an idea of what I will be covering. And before I do that, I do want to encourage you all to go ahead and check us out on the chat because David is right there sharing. David is right there answering questions. So if you can see my computer or my screen, it says right there from David, welcome everyone. Please let me know where you are joining from. So I do want to encourage you all before we get started to go ahead and make use of those chat features. I know that I am live on Facebook right now and I'm also live on YouTube. So whenever you share a comment, similar to the way that I'm doing right now, where I can share it with the rest of the people watching, I will be sharing those comments on my screen and answering those questions. So just to get us started, as I wait for more people to come in, you can start commenting where you are watching us from. But in the meantime, and while you all get settled, I'm going to go ahead and give you all a bit of a sneak peek of what we will be discussing today. Today is a very fun, very important presentation in which we will be talking about the 3 college application reminders. You know, all of last month, we focused on back to school season, what you needed to prep before the school year started, and everything you had to know to do the first few months of schools the right way. And now that we are in the middle of college application season, today's live stream is going to focus on 3 very important things that everyone who is applying to college right now, whether you are a parent or a student, should be aware of, and that it's going to make a big difference whether or not you do the following 3 things that I'll talk about throughout the presentation. It's going to make a big difference in acceptance odds, and it's going to make a big difference in the financial aid award packages that your student is eligible to receive. So I did want to start giving you that sneak peek of what we will be discussing today. Again, it will all be about college applications. But before we get into that, right now, I know it's 3:07, and if I'm looking down there, it's because I have my screen in front of me down here, but the camera's up there, so that's why I look back and forth. But yeah, today, as I wait for more people to pour in, I do want to remind you, again, use the chat to ask any questions, and once I am done with the presentation, I'm going to go back to the chat, and I'm going to scroll all the way back up, again, whether it's through YouTube or through Facebook, and I will be answering those questions that you ask throughout the presentation. And one last bit of housekeeping before I get started. I do want to remind you all, if you are watching on YouTube, to go ahead and give us a follow on Facebook. Or if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of our social media accounts are, as you can see right here in the screen, Best College Aid USA, all across the board, whether that is YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Because, and the reason why you would want to follow the different ones is that all of the information that we post is on different formats. So for example, if you have a little bit of a shorter attention span, or you are a parent who's trying to share some content with your student, it might resonate better if it comes in the form of a TikTok. Or if you like the long format video like this live stream, which is a longer video, we do post all of our live streams to these channels. So for example, right now, after I'm done with this presentation, let's say you jumped in a little bit late, or you are not able to stay to the Q&A session at the end. Well, the cool thing about following our channel or different channels and being subscribed to, for example, YouTube page, is that once this is over, I'll go ahead and crop this video and post all of the presentation portion of the video so that you can rewatch. And if I went over something too quickly, or if someone else has a question that you just missed, you can go back and check it out. So that is all of our social media channels. And then again, before we get started on the 3 most important college reminders that you need to be aware of as a parent or a student over the coming days, I am going to take the opportunity to thank the sponsor of this presentation, of this free live stream, and that is the Best College Aid program, which the Best College Aid program is our premium membership in which we allow our members to go ahead and get access to our free or to get access to our online course, our unlimited support via chat, via email, via any other of the digital means that we have. That is all included with our program. But if you want to learn a little bit more about Best College Aid, or if this presentation is of interest to you, but you're still, I want to learn more about the process or learn more about Best College Aid before I even consider, joining the Best College Aid program, well, we have prepared a free training that shares the 6 strategies to help your children get accepted to college with scholarships. And the description for that would be in the link below. Again, the whole point of this is that if you enjoy my teaching style, if you enjoy what we cover in this free live presentations, whether it's this very same live stream that I'm doing right now or the free presentation, then yeah, maybe you can start to consider about joining the Best College Aid program. But I do not want to start the presentation without inviting you all to go ahead and check out that free training, that free resource that we have in the link in bio, and also thanking the sponsor of this live stream, which is our Best College Aid program. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. All right, so let's get started with the presentation. The presentation, as I mentioned earlier, will be on the 3 most important college application reminders that you and your students should be aware of, not just the following days, but for the following months. What I will be talking about today will be very applicable. Again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier when I was doing the introduction and welcoming you all to the presentation, if you have a question along the way as I go through these reminders, there is, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, there is a comment option. And if you do go ahead and have a question throughout the presentation, what I will do is I will take those comments, like the one from Best College Aid, which is David answering or monitoring the chat. I will take that comment and I will share it. I will blast it on here to the screen as you're seeing right now. And I will be answering those questions, whether it's if I have an opportunity throughout the presentation, but certainly if not at the end of the presentation, once I go through the Q&A portion of it, which always comes at the end of every live stream that we do. So I do want to remind you all of that in case you missed that at the beginning. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first reminder that I have for this college application season. And the first reminder is, sorry, wrong slide. Okay, so the first reminder for this college application season, and that I do urge you all to be aware of and on top of, is application deadlines. So as we have talked time and time again throughout these live streams, certainly inside the Best College Aid program, this is something that we very much emphasize to our members. Application deadlines, super important, because this can be leveraged depending on your students' strengths and weaknesses in such a way that you apply or your student applies under the most favorable conditions. So it's all about taking the application in which the acceptance or the acceptance rate of that, or that percentage of admissions that you apply under is the highest, right? So I'm going to do a brief overview in case you have missed some of our explanations, and that way we can all be on the same page. So first, early action. So early action is a type of application in which a student can apply before the regular decision deadline. So in this early action, what's important about it is that it tends to not be restrictive. So you can apply early action to as many schools as allow it without being a restrictive application. And what's super important and cool about this type of application is that because it's earlier, you will learn, or you will find out if you have been accepted or not. Your student will learn, or they'll find out if they have been accepted or not to that university before students who apply under the regular decision application. And what this does is, number one, it allows a student to cruise through their senior year if they have been accepted to the school, their top choice early on. They can enjoy themselves a little bit more throughout the remainder of their senior year. But perhaps more importantly, knowing early whether or not you have been accepted to a school by leveraging and by using this early action application will allow your student to, number one, pivot if they are not accepted. Your student will be able to, okay, I was not accepted under these early applications. I can now take a step back, see what I did, and because it is still early in the process, apply to more, regular decision schools. Or if they are accepted, and as I said earlier, they are satisfied, or the school that they have been accepted to early was already a school that they're heavily, strongly considering going to, then that will give them a little bit of breathing room to no longer, let's say if it was a reach school or a target school, maybe, and the financial aid that they've been offered is good enough, maybe they can decide to not apply to the remaining 4 safety schools and maybe just a few of them, so that they can have a good financial backup or whatever it is. So knowing this early does give you that flexibility to adjust and adapt depending on whether or not you have been accepted or declined. And the good thing about that is whatever the outcome is, you have time to play around with that outcome in such a way that either, for example, increases your financial award package. If it's not enough, you can do something about it. You can be in communication with the financial aid office, and it's better to do this earlier rather than later. And if you were not accepted, maybe you were deferred, maybe you were straight up denied, as I mentioned earlier, you will have the opportunity to, whether it is to try do things to increase the competitiveness of your application if it's deferred to a regular decision deadline. So whether that is a continued interest letter, or whether that is, as I said earlier, to apply to a completely different school to make up for that missed opportunity. Those are all things that applying early can help you accomplish, because you will have the time and because you will have now the resources of knowing, okay, this is my baseline, this is what happened, this is what didn't happen, this is what I was offered, what I wasn't offered, and act accordingly. So I did want to explain that. I know that we've covered it extensively in others of our live streams, but it's important for me to share this with you all who are here. For example, like Daniel, who is watching from Nigeria. Hello and welcome, Daniel. Please keep on commenting where you're watching from, everyone. But yeah, it is important for me that everyone watching this is on the same page, so that when I explain things farther along, nobody feels like they're being left behind or that they don't understand something that I'm mentioning. So just to wrap up with early action, there are 15 colleges with an early action deadline of October 15th. As a matter of fact, my school, the school that I ended up attending, which is the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, which if you are watching us live, you will see that is back there. I have a logo of the school of UNC Chapel Hill. That's where I graduated from. I graduated class of 2021. And yeah, that school, UNC Chapel Hill, was one of the 15 schools at the time when I applied that had that early action October 15th deadline. So the way that it worked out for me is that October 15th rolled around. I already had submitted my application. And as a matter of fact, the first school that I heard back from was the University of North Carolina. And luckily things worked out. I was accepted. So around the winter break, I realized, or I got the good news that I'd been accepted, which then enabled me for the rest of my senior year to, number one, be way less pressure. And number two, as the other acceptance letters were coming in, I was able to see, oh, the financial aid or scholarship package is at or below what my first school had offered me. So that gave me a little bit of wiggle room to to negotiate, to act accordingly, to compare my options, and it worked out it worked out great. So I cannot stress this enough, or I cannot recommend it enough if you are a parent, to encourage your not your sisters, your students, to go ahead and leverage these early applications, because truly there is no harm to them unless you apply with criteria or with statistics that do not meet the criteria of the schools you're applying to early. So I'll get into that a little bit later on, but for the most part, it's beneficial. So next up, there are 100 colleges that have an early deadline of November 15th and 100 more that have an early action deadline of December 1st. So as you can see, these early action deadlines can span from October 15th all the way through December. So do keep in mind that each school sets their own deadlines, and that's something that we teach our students to keep track of, and that we help our students identify so that they don't miss out and they don't get left behind in terms of applying on time and all that good stuff. So do keep that in mind. Next up, we have early decision. Early decision works very similar to early action, but the thing about early decision, as the name suggests, it's a little bit more restrictive. Oftentimes, most schools that offer early decision, the caveat there is that you can only apply to that school early decision, and if you are accepted, you must go there. Of course, there are some extraneous circumstances, situations where you might be able to get out of that, but for the most part, early decision, you get accepted, you're going there, and that's usually reserved for schools for which a student is very, very certain that they will go there if accepted. So usually students reserve these types of application to for their top choice schools. And the thing here is that that does or could potentially show schools a higher demonstrated interest than other applicants. And also students who apply only under early decision deadlines tend to be sure that they're putting forward their best foot forward. So they are applying with the appropriate statistics, whether that is GPA, SAT, ACT. So having that in mind and making sure that students are taking advantage of this application, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling cycle where you don't really know if the acceptance rate for these early applications is higher because it's just naturally more accepting, or if because students already know that they have to be on top of things and apply with their best, statistics, again, high GPAs, high SAT or ACT scores, and because they're more competitive, they get accepted more early. But the bottom line is that early decisions, for the most part, tend to have higher acceptance rates than regular decisions. So that is something that we very much encourage our best college age students to look up when they're making their list of schools, and to determine, oh, okay, if this early whatever deadline has a higher acceptance rate for students who have this GPA, this SAT, this ACT, and I have this SAT, this GPA, this ACT, whatever it may be, and you have a check mark and you're sure that you're putting your best foot forward, then it will be beneficial to take advantage of this early deadlines, whether it's action or decision. Otherwise, you would move on to regular decision, which is the more commonly known deadlines and under which the majority of students apply to schools. And these regular decisions, I would advise to apply to a school under regular decision. Number one, if that's the only type of application they offer. Number two, if you look at the statistics of admitted students with early action and early decision, and you realize that your current statistics, again, GPA, SAT, ACT, whatever it may be, if yours are a little bit further behind and you need those extra couple of months to go ahead and improve your application before submitting it, and in that case, it might be more beneficial to assess where you're at and where you can get so that you apply with a stronger application, even if that acceptance rate is a little bit lower, right? So it just becomes a matter of assessing your own situation and assessing and playing the numbers of the schools for which you are applying to. So that is why making a list early and everything that we teach our students about being organized and starting early, super, super important, because the earlier you start, the more time you have to see, okay, this is where I have to get to by early action. And if that doesn't work, I can pivot, right? So that's just something that I wanted to share with you all. So that was the first tip for, application deadline. Moving on to second important thing that you need to remember during application season is what are the application requirements and what you should do with each of them. So first, I want to talk about essays. Essays are a way in which a university or college admissions officers can go ahead and see you beyond a standardized number that has been attached to your name. So usually when a student applies to college, they ask for your transcripts so that they can see how students across the country went ahead and balanced rigor of an application and rigor of the classes taken. So did they take AP classes, honors classes, IB classes, any other type of advanced classes? And number two, how they performed on each of them. So they take those transcripts and they recalculate their own GPA. That's a standardized number that they use for all applicants. So they have Smith-Jones and they give them a number associated that represents their academic performance. SAT or ACTs, very straightforward. It's a number, right? It's quantifiable, very comparable, standardized information that's attached to a student. However, with essays, this is one of the few opportunities that your student will have to put a story to their name that goes beyond numbers that can easily be compared, a 4 versus a 5, a 6 versus a 7, whatever it may be. An essay is a way in which your application or your student's application can come to life in a way that gives them a face or a story to the name. So it's super important for your student to take advantage of these essays. Number one, to share who they are beyond these numbers. If your student is going to talk about any experience in an essay, we very much encourage it to be something that adds something new to your application rather than supplement something that you've already talked about in the extracurricular section or something that is very apparent through your transcripts. It's all about adding a new layer, a deeper layer to your students. So that is something that you need to keep in track of. And common application essay topics have been posted for a while now. So your students should be working on those, because the last thing that you want to do if you are a student, or that you want your students to do if you are a parent, is for them to start the essay portion of their application last minute, submitted with grammatical errors, don't have a compelling story, don't have time to spell check, don't have time to narrative check, don't have time to share it with people who can have a fresh perspective to it. So making sure that you start early is probably the most important thing with these essays, because it will give you time, number one, to pivot if you realize that you don't like the trajectory that you're going with your essay, and number two, it will allow you to revisit and get a lot of other perspectives, that make sure that everything that is there is intentional and purposeful, right? So yeah, that's the essay. Number two, we have supplemental essay questions. And the thing about supplemental essay questions, especially if they are optional, is probably that there are no optional questions. For the most part, if there is an optional prompt, we advise you to answer it, especially if it will add, as I said earlier, a different compelling element to your application or a story that is not otherwise shown. I mean, obviously, you don't want to waste the reader's times, but you want to make sure that in any light that you can make yourself look like you are bringing something to the university, you go ahead and do so, and that you are intentional and authentic with what you are writing. But what I want to talk about specifically with supplemental essays is that the deadline that a school has for the application applies for essays and supplemental essays alike, right? It's not a matter of, oh, I submitted my common application one day, I can go ahead and wait till after the deadline to do the supplementary ones because they're a supplement. No, it's all on the same deadline. So make sure that your student and you are aware of this, because you do not want to wait till the last minute and not have it submitted, or have it submitted with errors. All right, letters of recommendation, same case. Every year we have some of our members who come up to us and tell us, oh, I forgot to ask for a letter of recommendation. What can I do? Well, this is us. This is me, Francisco, telling you, parent, or you student, depending on who it is who's watching this, go ahead and start thinking and asking for those letters of recommendation from whoever it is that you think will write an authentic, positive, compelling, good addition to your application, and you want to make sure you ask them ahead of time, because you do not want to be that student who is asking their AP Lang teacher for a recommendation letter the day that it's due, and you ask them at lunch break at noon and the application is due at midnight. You don't want to do that. That puts them on a very unfavorable position. It could affect you in terms of the quality of what they write because they're rushed. It could affect you if they do not submit it on time, because then your application is incomplete. So again, the earlier the better. Right now you have time. The first early action deadlines do not happen until October 15th. So right now, September 12th is a little bit over a month of anticipation. So if you're watching this, please, please, please make sure that you're on top of that, because you can procrastinate all you want, but the last thing you want to do is not get that submitted and have an incomplete application, or an application that is rushed and that has errors, because that will affect your odds of acceptance. So this was your wake up call if you needed it, or the little kick in the behind if you needed some proactivity, or if you needed some motivation. Right now is the time to go ahead and make sure that your essays, supplemental essays, letters of recommendation are all in check. And finally, the last thing that you will have to have as the last requirement that I very much advise you to be on top of. Obviously, there are way more, but these are the ones that I feel students struggle the most with in terms of time prep and anticipation and making sure that they have it on time, is certainly those standardized tests. And for those standardized tests, they need to be, as I said, with everything else that's been in this application, those standardized tests and those scores need to be submitted before the application is due, and ideally the school need to receive them before the application is due. So hopefully, if you have already taken those exams, you have already thought about what the timeline is going to be like to send them over. I know some people wait till the early beginning of the year SAT and ACTs to go ahead and send those out. When you take those exams, they will give you the option to, do you want the school to receive the scores directly? And I only recommend to take advantage of that option if you otherwise have not taken those exams and those scores are mandatory. Then that's the situation in which I advise you, okay, yeah, you can send them directly to the school just to make sure that they get accepted, or that they get submitted on time. But beyond that, I would advise, probably, if you have had the time and you are not in a rush, to maybe receive them first and then decide whether or not you send them. And that's more the case if your student has taken those exams multiple times and they're comfortable with their scores and they're just trying to get them even higher, right? But again, that's the overview of the second thing I wanted to cover today, which is requirements. The ones that people struggle the most keeping in track of during these few weeks are essays, supplemental essays, letters of recommendation, and standardized tests. The earlier, the better. And just make sure that you have a timetable based on your specific list of schools. All right. Now I'm going to take a water break. And before I move on to the last third of the presentation, I do want to speak directly right now to our members, because I know every week we have Best College Aid members who join these live streams every week. And I want to share with you all some cool news. So first, for members who are currently tuned in to the live stream, we are adding this new content this fall. We're going to add 10 more lessons for international students. So we're going to talk about additional requirements, how to complete the process as an international student, and looking for generous colleges. Again, and that's the case mostly because we have a lot of members who are international students themselves. So we are adding those lessons this fall, and I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it. Additionally, members, we are also adding a high school student prep. So we are adding another lesson. You know how the way that our curriculum is structured on section 3 of the course is all about the student. We will be adding a new lesson to the dual enrollment versus advanced placement classes series. So be on the lookout for that. And finally, as far as new content goes, we are adding another lesson for parents on how to win institutional scholarships. Again, those are the types of scholarships which, if you've been watching the videos inside the course, you know come directly from the school. So I just wanted to take the opportunity for the members who are watching right now to know that those lessons are coming soon. And I also have another set of good news for our members. We have added the following 3 new benefits. So if you are a member of Best College Aid, good news, you have access to 30% off the entire RIA store. And what that store is, it's a publisher which has materials for ACT, for AP crash course, for any other exams. I know that there's end of the year exams. So there are a bunch of different fields that this publisher does. And what I wanted to make sure, because I was in charge of brokering these deals, I wanted to make sure that our students got access not just to the crash course exams for the AP classes or the ACT materials, but instead I wanted to make sure that the whole store had that discount for you also. If you're a member of Best College Aid, check out inside the course. We already added a lesson on how to take advantage of this discount. Another discount for our members that I just wanted to, before finishing this presentation, share with you, because again, I know members are watching this, is that we have a partnership with Dell Technologies. So the entire Dell Technologies shop, we have a custom Best College Aid shop in which you can have discounts, 15%, 25%, and it applies to a lot of their tech materials. So that is laptops, gaming computers, headsets, peripherals, so like mouse, keyboards, all that stuff. And that's also a lesson inside Best College Aid that you members can take advantage of. Just go to that custom shop, and whenever you check out, the discounts will be applied directly to you. And finally, for our members, another thing that we've added that I want to make sure you are aware of before I finish this live stream presentation is an ACT Prep Plus package that's free to use for our members. So just go ahead and follow the instructions inside the course. There's a whole lesson called Activate your ACT Prep Plus package. That is a Kaplan package, which is the partner of ACT when it comes to study materials. We got a free package of that for our members. So go ahead and check out that lesson to make sure that you take advantage of that discount. So again, I just want to share that. Sorry for the non-members. I just know that a lot of our current members do tune in for this presentation. So I did want to take the opportunity to share the update on those new lessons and those new resources. But now I'm going to head back to the presentation now that I've shared that. And I'm going to move on to the third and final part of it. And the third and final part of the presentation for 3 college application reminders that I feel are very, very important for you to be aware of right now is number 3, to make sure that you're on top of your financial aid and scholarship forms. And why is that? Well, because important deadlines will be coming up soon. So first, we have the FAFSA and CSS profile. Both of these are forms that are meant to assess and quantify the financial need or the financial standing of your household. And it does so through a series of documentation, whether it's tax returns, whether it's income statements, all that stuff gets compiled into a form. And then based on that, different types of scholarships and aid are given out, whether it's at the federal, state, institutional, or even private level. So it's super important to fill out these forms. That's the FAFSA, and if necessary, the CSS profile. And the reason why I'm talking about this right now is because those applications open October 1st. Inside Best College Aid or members, remember, you have access to a step-by-step tutorial on how to fill out each of these to make sure that you don't make any mistakes and that they get filled out on time. You also, as a Best College Aid member, have access to a tutorial on CSS profile. So everything that you need to know from whether or not your schools require a CSS profile to how to complete it, that is also inside the course. So check out those lessons. For non-members, just make sure that October 1st, you fill those forms out correctly and on time. Next up, I want to talk about institutional aid. And with institutional aid, there is this very important concept that there is a priority for students who apply early and students who have good academic standing. So this just means that you need to make sure you apply early for institutional aid. Again, whether the requirement for that is a CSS profile, any additional form to fill out the FAFSA, whatever that may be, the earlier you complete those steps, usually after October 1st, the better, because a lot of this money is given out on a first come, first served basis. And now, here is where many students or many parents say, oh, but what if my family makes too much money, right? Or my parents are really well off. There's four of us, but we don't really have financial need. I've heard that it's not really worth it for us to apply for the FAFSA, for the free application for federal student aid, because we just make too much money to earn that. A lot of people also say, oh, I am not rich enough to pay for college completely by myself, but I also don't have the financial need necessary to qualify for a lot of need-based aid and scholarships. So I'm in this medium where I don't know what I can do. And I do want to remind you that as it stands for the FAFSA, the whole point of it is not, oh, you earn too much, you earn above this certain amount of money, you automatically don't qualify for any aid or scholarships. In reality, what it does and what our members inside Best College Aid learn is that this form gets filled out to ultimately reach a number called the EFC, estimated family contribution. And that number then is determined, then determines how much aid, how much need aid can be given out. But the things here is that it's not just about income. It's about how many students you have, how many of them are in college. So you may have your family may have a lot of students, and despite being well off, there will be need. And by not applying in the first place, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Or another thing that people don't know is that merit-based scholarships and awards are given out for students and might need the FAFSA to be completed in order to award those scholarships and financial aid. So by not filling it out, you are disqualifying yourself from a lot of merit-based scholarships that have absolutely nothing to do with your family's financial standing. So just something to keep in mind, something that our Best College Aid members already know and can learn all about inside our program. But yeah, I didn't want today's presentation to end without sharing that with you all. And then finally, the last thing that I want to remind you all before the end of this presentation, and as far as financial aid and scholarship forms, is that private and state aid resources and scholarships are still available. So whether it is the Bright Futures in Florida or the tuition assistance program in, I believe that's New York, whichever state program it may be, or whatever private scholarship, whether it's a private scholarship from Comcast, which is what I got when I went to college, or my brother got a local relocation committee scholarship, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that you are on top of those deadlines so that you do not miss out those application deadlines and you do not qualify for these scholarships that are meant to supplement what you already will be receiving from federal aid and institutional aid. So just wanted to remind you all of that. I will now go back in our chats and I will be answering some of the questions that I got throughout the presentation. But before I do that, I'm first going to have some water. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to invite you all who watch this presentation. If you have not already done so, I know I went relatively fast. Sometimes I speak very fast, and sometimes I cover the topics that are relevant to this presentation, but you may have other questions that you didn't get to ask. So I do want to invite you to the free training that is in the link in bio. That is 6 strategies to help your children get accepted to college with scholarships. Pretty much the way that this worked out is my siblings and me, which you can see all on the picture right there. We came to the US, didn't know how the system worked, and fast forward 12 years later through support from private advisors, and then through my brother worked at the financial aid admissions office at his school. I worked at a college analytics spending company while I was in college. So we took all that information, and again, we fast forward 12 years, and collectively, my siblings and I received together over $600,000 in financial aid and scholarships, and we graduated from college debt free. So that is what we poured into this training. We condensed all that those experiences to the 6 strategies that helped us the most, and that is where a lot of the questions that you may be having will be answered. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. If you enjoyed my teaching style, that's certainly something that you can check out. That presentation is given out by David, who's my brother, who you might recognize from other live streams. We look alike. People say that I look like him, but with slightly bigger cheeks. So yeah, he's the one who does the presentation on the 6 strategies, and it is completely free. We talk more about the Best College Aid program at the end for those of you who are interested, but if not, we will continue to do this weekly live presentations. And again, the training is completely free. So best case scenario, you get training that helps your family out. Worst case scenario, it was free, you learned something. So no worries there. But I did want to make sure I invited you all because we have gotten a lot of feedback from parents who say that they learn more from our trainings, whether it was this live stream or these live streams that we do every week, or that free training that we have there, that they'll learn more from that than 4 years of their free high school college counselor. So again, just wanted to extend that invitation to you all before I went on and asked and answered some questions. So with that being said, let me go ahead and share the first question, which is from Justin Frey. When is the best time to join extracurriculars and clubs? Awesome question. So when it comes to extracurriculars and clubs, as I mentioned earlier, there is the standardized portion of your college application, which can be derived from your transcripts and your SAT or ACT scores. So a school can put a number attached to your GPA, and your standardized test scores are obviously a number. However, with extracurriculars and clubs, that is a way to go ahead and add an extra layer to your college application. And a lot of parents and a lot of students ask us, what extracurriculars do colleges care about, and what about them makes them stand out? So when it comes to extracurricular activities, there are two main things, among many others, but the two main things that most admissions counselors or admissions officers care about or can agree that are important to colleges are leadership and duration. So inside our program, we teach our students more in depth about this, but to summarize it for the sake of this presentation, leadership and duration are exactly what they sound like. How long have you been involved in an extracurricular activity, and to what degree? So in general, the longer you are involved, so if you're a student in middle school or a parent of a middle schooler, allowing them to explore an array of different activities will be super beneficial, because if they do find that one activity that they love, whether that is the swim club, whether that is theater, whether that is a musical instrument, it will be super beneficial to go ahead and share and continue to perform that activity throughout their high school years, because that allows them to display the concept of duration, how long they performed it. Well, if it's throughout all of high school, that's amazing. And as far as leadership goes, to what degree were they involved in? Did they have any leadership positions? How much time did they commit to it? Are they tangibles, numbers, or performances that can be tied to their involvement? So whether that is fundraising X amount of money for this club, or whether that is being the vice president, treasurer, president, whatever it is of said activity. So those are the two main things that colleges care about when extracurriculars. So that is leadership and duration. Go ahead, if you are a parent, and try your best from an early start to help your student identify their passions, because that's honestly the most authentic and the most time efficient and cost efficient way to supplement your students' extracurricular portion of their college application, to allow them to find something that they truly enjoy performing for a long time and get us involved into it, because they already enjoy it. So it's not like a chore to them. But yeah, great question, Justin. Cool. Moving on to another comment, we have Jenna Dean, who, welcome back, Jenna. I see you in a lot of our live streams commenting, so thank you for tuning in. And Jenna says, thank you for all the information, for all the incredible advice. No, Jenna, thank you for being here, tuned in week after week. Really appreciate it, and I hope you're getting a lot of value from these live streams. All right. Next question that we have is from Melanie Marcos, and Melanie Marcos is saying, what is the difference between the SAT and the ACT? Should I take both? So among many other differences between the SAT and the ACT, some of the most important ones are the length of it. One is a little bit longer and spread out across different categories and sections. And probably even more important than the time duration difference, I would say, is the content that is covered in the SAT versus the ACT. So the main difference when it comes to content is that the ACT has a science portion, again, amongst many other things. What I find the biggest difference between these two is the science portion, which the ACT offers and the SAT does not. So for the most part, if you are a student, and when people think of science section, they're like, oh my God, but I'm terrible. I never took a AP Bio or AP Chem. What is this science section? It's more of like a critical thinking, logic based type of science. So what I would do, you asked me, should I take both? What I like to do is very much start with the free practice exams offered by both the SAT or ACT. Sit down and take both on different weekends. The earlier you can do this, ideally as a freshman or sophomore, the better. And then based on that performance, you can kind of get an idea on that standardized range of scores, how your score compares to that of the average student, and more specifically, the average applicant at the schools of your choice. And you will know which one you are a little bit above the curve, and maybe you can focus on excelling and honing your skills at that specific particular standardized test. So that's probably where I would start if I were you when deciding between the SAT or the ACT. So again, ideally, explore with both, whether that is through free practice online tests. You can make sure that you take advantage of the PSAT offered by your high school. And then based on that initial assessment of which one you excel more at, for the most part, colleges don't have a preference for which one they'll take. So use that to decide which one, and then practice, hone your skills on whichever one you pick. And then inside our program and throughout other live streams, we've explained how to leverage whether you are an above average test taker or a below average test taker when it comes to what schools you apply to, and whether or not they're test optional, whether or not they're test blind, whether or not they're test mandatory. You can use your performance to craft a specific list that suits your strengths, So that's a great question. Hopefully that helped you there. Let's see. I have Lilia giving the thumbs up. I have, I believe, one more question. And the final question that I have for you all today is from Gabriel. Gabriel says, when is the best time to apply to college? Well, I might have answered this throughout the presentation, but this is an excellent question or a perfect way to end today's presentation on college reminders. So what is the best time to apply to college? You want to start as early as possible. The road to college is a road that can start as early as middle school, but the actual application part of it, you will want to, depending on where you are and what your goals are, you will want to make a list of those specific schools that interest you, divided between reach, target, and safety schools. And each one of those schools is going to have their specific deadlines, right? So as I mentioned throughout the presentation, there are schools that have an October 15th deadline, whereas there are others that only offer regular decision deadlines that are in January. So to concretely answer your question, when is the best time to apply to college? I would simply say as early as possible. You certainly want to be very, very heavily involved in the application process no later than August. That's when you should probably start looking at finalizing your list of colleges, so that once you have that list between 8 to 12 schools, you can go ahead, check out those deadlines, reverse engineer what you want to have by when. So let's say a school has an October 15th early action deadline. Well, you will want to give yourself like a week or so buffer time that your application should ideally be done. So based on that, you're already at October 8th. So if you want to give yourself, a month of working on your essays and crafting all of the supplemental writing portions of the application, whatever the reason may be, you will want to have that buffer time to work on it. And then you can capitalize off those early action, early decision, regular decision deadlines. As we talked about throughout the presentation, each one of these may have different acceptance rates. So you want to apply under whichever one gives you the higher percent of odds of acceptance. So yeah, to concretely answer your question, as early as possible. Ideally, you will be starting, or you are super into the process right now if you're a senior. If not, there's no better time than the present to start, because it's not too late. Everything that can be done, everything that has to be done can still be done if you are a senior. So yeah, go ahead and make sure that that list is complete and that you have those deadlines very, very clear in your mind, so you know when you should have everything: SATs, ACTs, letters of recommendation, extracurriculars, the actual application, all that completed, submitted, and received by the schools before the deadline. Great question. And I got another question from Xiao Nei. I hope I'm saying that right. Xiao Nei, and they are saying, what's the difference between regular decision and rolling? Wonderful question. So for the most part, regular decision is, whenever people think of college and they think of, oh, I have to submit an application by December 25th or whatever the day may be. Regular decision is the one application that the general student population applies under, and it differs from the early decision applications or early action application deadlines in the sense that it is usually around December, January, and it is the main deadline that they have, not the last deadline that the colleges have. And this, you're asking between the difference of this type of application with rolling. So with rolling, instead of having one particular set date, as I mentioned the example, I said December 25th. I don't know why I said Christmas, but with rolling, a college will have, rather than just one specific day, they will have a specific admissions period in which they can go ahead and you can submit it at any given day, any given moment of that admissions period, and your acceptance will be coming in depending on when you submitted your application. So it's on a rolling basis. So if you apply earlier than your friend by, 3 weeks, maybe you will hear back from the school earlier than your friends who applied 3 weeks later. So that is more of a case, or that is mostly for schools with a high volume of applications. Again, it's super important to start off the admissions process with the list of colleges and then write down the type of deadline and the admissions deadline so that you don't miss it. And if it's a rolling deadline, my piece of advice there is that you go ahead and submit it earlier rather than later, because you will get the benefits of knowing when that admission or like that decision early on, and you can pivot if you were not accepted, or you will have time to go ahead and compare financial aid award packages and all that good stuff before schools close up or before decision day. So as a general rule of thumb and a recurring theme that I've been talking about throughout the presentation is the earlier the better. The earlier you do anything, the better. All right. So I believe that is all of the questions that I received. It has been a pleasure to be with you all today. I do want to remind you all, if I didn't answer your questions, but I think I answered all of them. If you're still interested in learning more about the road to college, how to maximize scholarships, how to increase odds of acceptance, we have our free training, the 6 strategies to help your children get accepted to college with scholarships. That is on the link below this video. So go ahead and check that out. And make sure to subscribe, not subscribe, but yeah, I guess in the proper term on YouTube is subscribe. So yeah, in YouTube, you subscribe to our channel because we will be posting the recording of this video, of this live stream. We'll be posting it, but also on Best College Aid USA, that's our Instagram channel, where we post clippings of everything that we talked about today. TikTok, everything is on a shorter, condensed, more bite-sized type of format, so you can follow us there too. If you have students who like to get their content in smaller chunks, more quick to the point. I was reading this article about how, Gen Z and, because of the way that social media is set up now with, instant gratification of short videos, and you get right to the punch of what you were trying to say within the first minute, the students are more I would, not in a bad way, but impatient. Like they're just more used to getting instant gratification and getting the information that they're looking for in such a quick format. So that might work best for your student if they want to receive our content or be up to date with everything that we share. That would probably be best for you to follow the Best College Aid USA account over maybe the YouTube or Facebook accounts, which are more of these longer videos where we share information. But at the end of the day, what we try to do is make content that appeals to the format that appeals the most to the different types of audiences. So there's that on that. And I see that Xiao, you said, could you also ask David to respond to Best College 8 emails? I'll make sure to let him know. Yes. And as far as other comments, I believe that is that. So it has been a pleasure being with you all today. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you all next week, and have a lovely rest of your Monday. Goodbye.